Hi, and welcome to the review of year 2, or Y-2, or round 2 as I call it. So as we can see, as far as net profits, we left off with most companies being about somewhere between 40 and 45 million. Now we see that many teams have exceeded 80 million of net profit. So here are our top 3 teams: Team 37, Team 23, and Team 10, with exceeding $80 million in net profits. And this is the goal of a company, is to increase your net profits, because this is what we call maximizing shareholders' wealth. If you see most teams, though, it looks like, if not all teams, have improved upon their profits from the previous round. So we've seen Team 33 had 31 million in net profits, and now they have 62. So they doubled their net profits. And this is how we want to see moving forward, that you keep increasing your net profits. So that was good. If we look at total points per team, as I had said previously, in round 1, year Y-1, is the easiest round to make points, because you're coming off of very low metrics of the previous management that you're replacing that did really poorly. So now in round 2, you're competing year over year against a lot of your metrics you scored in round 1. So naturally, the points are going to be lower in year 2. And that's okay, because you're trying to get an average of 400 points per round to get the maximum score in the simulation, to get the total points for the grade of the simulation. And as you can see here, most everybody scored well over 400 points. So everybody seems to be pretty much on track. Now we have a team here that Team 4 scored 700 points in round 1, but only 58 points in round 2. I have a feeling that has to do with lower profit margins, something that I warned against. Okay, so if you look at stock price, in last place we have Team 39, and in second place we have Team 23 and Team 37. So you can see there's a big difference in stock price here between $16 and $37. So what is that difference? Well, that's going to be earnings per share, growth in revenues, growth in net profits. So as your company does better, naturally the stock price, investors are going to like your company more. They're going to buy the stock more frequently and push up that stock price. If we look at total sales, only I think it looks like all companies have increased their sales, which is good. We still have the same number 1 leader in sales, Team 35, followed by Team 36, and then Team 14. So Team 8 should really reevaluate their forecasts, as should Team 39, because they're in much lower, their forecasts are much lower than everybody else as far as generating total sales. So that should be something they review. Earnings per share, we have a new team number 37 is number 1 in earnings per share, followed by 23, and then Team 10. We had a huge increase in Team 41. They had probably the biggest percentage increase from the previous round. And we still have Team 39 in last place. So they need to look at their earnings per share, their net profits, and fix that up. Okay, so let's look at the leader. We're just in industry charts. Let's look at the leaderboard, and we see, a number of teams here scoring. Most teams, if I scroll down, have scored over the 400 points. And there's only a few teams here that are below 300 points. So these teams here really need to focus in on why are they below 400 points. One reason is probably profit margin. So you see Team 4 here, Team 39, 38, 7, 34. If you go to the very bottom of profit margins, you see Team 38, Team 4, Team 7, Team 34. So profit margins, your gross profit margins, is where you want to make sure you increase them. Many teams are in the 50 percentiles or higher. Many teams are in the high 40 percentiles. Now, we started out at 40%. So if you're still at 40%, it's 2 years have gone by and you've made no improvements. That's why people are disappointed in your stock price. That's why you haven't earned a lot of year-over-year points, is because you haven't listened to my first video, where in the first video I talk a great deal about how you have to increase these profit margins. So that's important. So let me show you. Let's see. let's go back to, I'll give you an example. Here's the company I'm running as an example. So here's the overview. So the first thing you should do before you start your inputs for year 3 or Y-3, let's review, start with the overview and let's review. So from year 1 to year 2, I increased sales by 57%. I got 57 points. My quick ratio and my debt ratios, I lost points here because I increased my debt. So if you look at chapter 3, look at the formulas for debt ratios, look at all the financial ratio formulas in chapter 3 that we talk about, that I talk about in the lecture, that are in the textbook and the homeworks. This is what you're trying to improve upon. So if you read chapter 3, you'll understand how you can improve these metrics or how to calculate these. So this is okay because I took on debt to expand my company, so I expected that. Now my profit margins went from 48 to 53%. And if my gross profit margins go up and I'm controlling my advertising spending well, then I should see an increase in my operational and net profit margins, which I did. Now, when you look at things like total asset turnover, I didn't make a lot of points in total asset turnover. Return on assets I did okay on, and I bought a lot of assets, but it's going to be hard to do well in those variables in the beginning as you're building the company. So same thing with return on equity. Usually I think a lot of these return on equities, return on assets, total asset turnover will improve towards the end of the simulation when sales are growing much faster than your purchases of assets. My market capitalization went up. My forecasts were pretty good, and I had a surplus, and I doubled my investments in my operational investments, so I got 200 points there to give me my 500 points, or a total of 1,295 points. So I'm, doing pretty well after 2 rounds. But I have to now let's go over the inputs I would choose while setting up round 3. So the first thing you should do after reviewing to see how you did here, so I know that I got to get this profit margins. I'm going to probably shoot for 58% now. I'm always try to be about 5 percentage points higher than the previous round. So that's key. I could check out assessments to get a more detailed look at how I did in my categories. I could review charts, and probably the team performance chart is the most important because that's going to really show me my forecast levels. Okay, so here we see, it's giving me my sales, everything pretty well mapped out, but I'm really concerned about my market potential versus actual sales. So in sedan, I only sold 3,300. I could have sold 3,600, so that was bad forecasting there. Truck, I could have sold 23. I only sold 2,000. So these, and I think I did this because I tried to buy, I was trying to increase my capacity utilization, so I didn't buy as many plants, and I forecasted a little bit lower so I could keep at the 2 and 3 plant level, and I missed out on 500 extra car sales. So that's important to look at. Okay, so let's go back to my sales now. So now, before I do my forecast, I'm going to always check with down here the student manual, because this is what's going to give me a good idea of what my forecast should be. So I'm going to go to the page and let's see, year 3. So this is going to be my guideline, and in year 3 we're looking at, I'm going to write down year 3, and hopefully this is the average of what, if you read the little note down here, this is the average of what you would sell if everything was identical everywhere. So I'm going to start again with the economy class car. The customer expectations have increased, the importance factors are the same, the amount I can sell the car for has increased, my operational cost reductions have increased, and that's a direct result from my production page making these investments here. So I have, it's $300 I save per car per level. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 levels. 6 times 300 is how we come up with this $1,800 savings. So basically, whatever my total material cost is, and labor costs, I get this reduction to get my total direct costs. So that's why you want to invest in those operational cost reductions. So here I'm going to increase my, let's see, okay, so now I've gone down. So I'm going to have to play with these numbers to try and get a better level. Okay, so now I'm going up, looks like 6 percentage points, which is what I want. Even though it's not the best car possible, I still have to please my investors and get those gross margins higher. So I'm going to forecast a little bit higher than last round. I'm going to be a little bit closer to what the average is. And remember, you still have to fill out these reflective observations to let me know how you updated your strategy. You know, for example, if I was writing the reflective observations here on, you know, I would think about what I'm doing and kind of write down notes as to why I made certain changes. So what's influencing my forecast, the change in the forecast? Well, let's say, you know, the product's growing. The user guide says the product's growing at a certain percentage, and I'm going to take that, you know, percentage in conjunction with how well I think I'm making the car to give my new sales forecast. Okay, so I'm getting a warning here. Probably not good to fill out the forecast first. So I'm going to do, let me create the car first. I'm going to take out this forecast here. Okay. All right, so I can see here that I haven't gone up much, so that's a problem. So I'm going to have to play around in here a little bit. So this is the least. Can I make that 40? Nope. This is the bottom on that. So I should probably make this higher. I'm still having trouble getting that up too high. So I'm going to have to okay, so this is about the best I can do, and you can see that I've only increased it about 3%, which means I'm going to have to get a lot more operational cost reductions if I want to keep up this vehicle in doing better. So there's not much more I could do here. I'm just going to have to live with that lower profit margin and know that I'm going to have to get these cost reductions higher to improve that next round. And that's what I would write in this box, that, you know, this round I'm not really meeting my goal of the profit margins because the customer expectations have increased so greatly that I'm going to have to increase my cost reductions next round to meet my financial goals. That's something you could write in the reflective observations. Okay, truck. So let's see here. I'm going to try and improve upon my truck. And again, I'm having a problem getting my price of the truck, my profit margins high in the truck. So it's really this, you know, I'm going to have to cut back in some areas. To try and get that up a bit. I don't really think I can cut back in these areas here too much. So again, this is another disappointing, only 2%. And you'll see in some categories is, you know, I could go a little bit lower and it's going to hurt my sales. So I might take off 100 cars because my engine really is not keeping up with customer expectations. So I'm going to pull back my forecast a little bit because I'm getting 4.5% profit margin increases. That's the best I could do there. So you see how round 3 is tough because I didn't make enough operational cost reduction investments. So let's see what I could do here. And you see the price is going up, but because the customers are demanding more, it's getting harder for me to meet their demands. And even with the higher car price and the cost reductions, I'm still having a hard time increasing those profit margins. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to go back a little bit on some of these. See if I can go. I'll look. Okay. All right, so I was able to get up 4 percentage points, 4.5 percentage points, but I'm still not my customers, the car's actually moving backwards in some of these features. It's better than last year, except for engine power, but still, it's the best I could do because I can't let this profit margins fall lower than last year. My investors would hate that. Okay, now I'm done with the sales page. I'm going to move into the marketing, but I'm actually going to skip. I'm going to do marketing offline because it takes so long, and then I'm going to move right into production. Okay, so I'm in production now with my marketing strategy. It takes a long time. I usually work it out in Excel, but I have to break it up between what the user guide says, and I'm trying to stay somewhere between the bottom and the top of the range on the marketing as far as what's suggested. Now, in the production page here, I'm going to have to buy some more assets this round. So I can have to buy another factory so I can make increase my capacity utilization to 4,000 so I can make the 3,400. Now, if I don't buy that factory, I'm going to get this, error. When I try to submit, it's going to say that, you don't have enough capacity to make the 3,400. So I'm going to have to buy one production plant to push that from 3 to 4,000 so I can make that. And I'm going to I'm going to double all my operational investments. That way I'll get 100 points for doubling my going from 12 to 24. I'll get 100 points by doubling my operational investments, and it'll make it easier for me to get to my profit margin goals next round. So again, here I'm going to make 4,400, but I only have the capacity to make 4,000. So I have to buy a production plant so I can make an extra one here. And then I'm going to double my operational investments here so I can get more of a cost reduction next round. And then you need a new production plant here. So I'm buying a lot of assets. So I'm going to expect my return on asset and total asset turnover to be underperformed next round because I'm taking on a lot of assets. And remember, it's still required that you fill out these reflective observations each round. So here I don't have to buy a production plant here. And I'm going to use my current inventory. I'm going to use that up. So I have always wanted 0 excess or shortage. So I'm just going to build what I need. And again, I'm going to double my operational investments. I'm just going to double all of them. So I see that my additional investment is 12, which is my previous investment was 12. So if I give another 12, I'll get 24, which is why I'm saying I'm doubling my operational investments. And that's going to help with increasing my profit margins next round. So let's see how I did on the financial statement. Okay, so I have a surplus of 64 million. Remember from chapter 3, in chapter 4 we're talking about planning, and we're talking about pro forma financial statements. So you can see here, based on the sales forecast I put together and the marketing I spent, the advertising I spent, and all the activities I've just done in sales, marketing, and production is what's building this guess. This is a guess for next year's financial statement. So the guess is I'll be able to increase my profit margins, and the guess is that I'm running a surplus. Now it's only if I sell every vehicle I forecasted. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to invest some of that surplus in paying down. I'm going to pay down some of my debt since it did very bad in my debt margins last year. I'm going to buy back some debt because I have this excess service, and I'm also going to retire some stock. Okay, so now I still have a surplus of 48 million. Now keep in mind, if I did complete the round and then you want to go in and change something, you can always go to review game and you can go back into your simulation even though you submitted it, and you can go and change something. So maybe what I'll do is, since I have extra surplus, I might actually buy some more reflective observations. I noticed that. So I'm gonna push these up a little bit, and I'm gonna see how does that affect my total cash surplus. So I have 31 million in cash surplus. I'd like to have at least 20 million in the surplus. So I'm going to go back to production again, and I could spend some extra money here. And okay, so let's see what my surplus is now. Because I have the extra cash, I don't want to just waste it. I have a $14 million surplus. That's risky, because if I wind up having some excess vehicles, I'm going to wind up with a deficit and lose 200 points, because I lose the 100 points I would have got for a surplus, and then it goes negative 100 points. That's why I say I'm losing 200 points. So I'm going to pull back one level operational investments just to push up that surplus, because I don't want to be caught with a deficit, unexpected deficit, if my sales forecasts are too aggressive. So it's going to cushion my cash. So if I don't sell all the cars I forecasted, that surplus will help me to prevent me from having a deficit. Okay, so 22 million surplus. I think that's good enough for this year. So let's review really quickly what I've done this year. I've tried to push up my profit margins as much as I can. I struggled. So in the production area, I increased my operational investments in production, so that way next year it'll make it a little bit easier for me to get meet my profit margin goals. And my marketing was close to the distribution using the guide. So I go back to the marketing. I'll just show you a couple common mistakes. So here, my total is here. So a common mistake is to put everything in one category, which you should really break the categories out a little bit based on that. The user guide will kind of give you an idea of the range. So now the range, this range is dynamic here. So this changes as the industry grows. So we're spending a lot more than the previous round. So but I don't want to spend too much over. So I'm going to decrease television to keep me, okay, so I spent a little bit over, which is okay, but this spending is, now that I increase the spending here, that's going to come off of my surplus, because now my expenses in the finance page have increased. So anyway, all these decisions I make is what affects the finance page, and that's why you want to make sure you have that surplus. So there are some hints on how to fill out year 3. I wouldn't do exactly as I did, because I kind of rushed through this pretty well, but I want to give you a general idea and some hints and some guidance on how to complete year 3 so you can get your maximum points and do well in the simulation. Okay, good luck, and I'll talk to you soon.